Good evening. My name is Andrew Waterhouse. I'm director of the Robert Mondavi Institute. Welcome to our Sips and Bites program, exploring the world of artisanal tea. The Robert Mondavi Institute strives to provide the public with insights into the food and drink innovations here at UC Davis. Tonight's program highlights the Global Tea Initiative founded by Catherine Burnett, and we'll be tasting some spectacular teas later in the program. In addition, we'll hear from Manik Jayakumar and Rona Tyson, two leading experts who will explain the taste qualities of the teas we'll be tasting, as well as the background of how these teas were created. During the tasting portion of the program, we will look for your questions. Please use the Q&A tool to post your questions and we will get to as many as we can. I'd now like to introduce our first guest, Catherine Burnett. Catherine is a professor of art history and founder of the UC Davis's Global Tea Initiative for the study of tea culture and science. In her research and teaching, she likes to explore definitions of culture and how culture is formed. Her new book is Art History Without the Art: The Curious Case of Sino-Vietnamese Teapots Before 1700. Good evening, Catherine. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Nice to see you, Andy. Nice to be with you and have this opportunity to talk about all things tea.
Wonderful. Well, I have to say that it's not obvious how someone gets from art history to tea. Can you give us a few clues here?
Sure. It's not such a hard thing to imagine after all. Although I'm a painting specialist by most of my training, I actually also was trained in ceramic studies, ceramic history. And I was lucky enough to have an internship at the National Palace Museum in Taiwan, and became familiar with its vast collection and studied their teaware. And friends would take me and introduce me to teas and Chinese tea culture. And I started to really like teapots, and I started collecting teapots. And so that was the sort of an undercurrent all along in my research. And then over the years, in my other major projects, I started bumping into tea in different kinds of ways. So one of the projects that I was working on was the issue of conceptual originality. And I discovered that one of the leading art theorists of the day in the late Ming was also a good friend of a major potter who was creating some of the most inventive shapes of the day. And so that really was sort of foundational into my launching my research into tea. And it came about that way. And since you asked, one of the cool things about teapots is that it's such a unique, a teapot is a pretty unique shape. And because it is a pretty unique shape, as opposed to, say, a cup or a bowl, it has a really, really clear function, because ceramics, form follows function in an interesting way. And so where you put the handle relates to how you pour it, but also how you keep your fingers from getting burnt. You don't touch the side of a hot vessel and things like that. And so because it has an interesting shape and a specific shape, you can interest cultural spread through this very specific shape. And so in this project that I'm working now on Sino-Viet teapots and tea culture, I'm using the teapot as an index to trace the spread of tea culture before 1700 from China to Vietnam and then out to the world. It's fun. It's fascinating.
Well, in both East Asia and West Asia, tea is very important. And I'm sort of wondering if you could comment on why tea has such cultural significance across Asia. I mean, what is it about? Is it that it's a social beverage? I mean, we have similar things in Western culture. I mean, I'm in wine, so I think of wine, of course. But what is it about tea that has, been so important in Asia?
Yeah, from the get-go, well, okay, not from necessarily the get-go, because I'm talking, um, really back there, 5,000 years back, where excavations have been done on cultivated teas. But looking at, say, when tea first shows up in literature, it's a food, and then over time it becomes a beverage. And then by the Tang Dynasty, it's established as something that people think about, and a connoisseurship culture builds up around it. And so there is that aspect where people are tasting it and learning how to make it at a level that is satisfying and beautiful, and they can share it with their friends, like a good, nice glass of wine. But then also it gets engaged in Taoist philosophy first. It appears, and so how it's prepared on a brazier, a special kind of brazier, engages various types of Taoist philosophy, and then it becomes absorbed into Zen Buddhism, or in Chinese it would be Chan Buddhism, meditational Buddhism, and it becomes useful because the monks, as they sit in long periods of seated meditation, they need something to keep them awake and alert, and tea work that way. And then because of the beautiful tea wares that people were made for it, and people prized that, then the culture can develop around those things, ways to share and enjoy. And plus, tea tastes good and it makes you feel good, and it has nutritious benefits and health benefits that people in early China's culture learned about, developed, and taught each other. And so it's mammothly fascinating. And I think so these different cultures develop around it, and practices develop around it, and people enjoy them and share them, and trade ideas, trade teas over a cup of tea.
Yeah. As a child, I actually lived in Iran, and when you went to the bazaar to go shopping, if you went into a shop, the first thing you had to do was sit down, and they had usually, we use the term tea boy, that was usually a kid of some sort, would show up with a tray with these beautiful, glasses, small glasses of bright orange tea. And it was very important to partake with the tea and chat with the store owner before you began business. It was a very important part of the culture.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so true there and throughout Asia. And you can't, I suppose you can go into a shop and buy things without that happening, but you can't have any kind of serious negotiation or meeting or social event without first sitting down and having a cup of tea. And sharing that, and establishing a relationship at some level, and then building from that. It's quite lovely.
Yeah, I'm talking about going into a shop where maybe they're selling carpets, which would be a major purchase, and so you don't just casually walk in and say, "Oh, give me that one, I'll leave."
Right.
You have to establish that relationship. I'd like to ask you a few things about GTI.
Sure.
So it's got a pretty large mandate. I'm sort of wondering if you could summarize sort of the mission of the GTI for our audience here.
Sure. So our mission is to promote the understanding of tea through evidence-based knowledge. And we do that through research and teaching and outreach. And so in a nutshell, that's what it is. But to make it happen, much like the RMI, we need to build the curriculum and build up programs that can support students. Students are eager to study tea. They're coming to UC Davis to study tea because they found out about GTI. And so it's pretty remarkable. And then also once they're here, they discover tea. And so we have MFA degrees, PhD degrees, undergraduate degrees in process on tea topics across the disciplines that we want to encourage and make happen more and more. So you might be interested to know that tea research, tea studies on campus actually started in the 1960s and went on for about a decade and a half. And then was allowed to go fallow. And then GTI grew up out of a faculty research cluster in 2012. And then with the support of members of the industry, I'm going to do a shout out to Mr. Daryl Cordy, who is known very well to the wine community and RMI, but a chance conversation with him over lunch one day, he raised the issue. I picked up a little teapot that I happened to bring to dim sum, something like this, and he picked it up and said, "Catherine, what I don't understand is why doesn't UC Davis study tea?" And I was like, oh my, that's a good question. Why doesn't UC Davis study tea? We study everything else, beverage wise. We should study tea. And I've got an interesting project that I'd love to work on in tea culture. And I know all the people in East Asian studies, and you and Axel Borg, our wonderful librarian, know all the people in sciences. Let's get together and create the All Things Tea Research Cluster. And from that, then 3 years later, we had enough momentum that the provost said, hey, this is a good idea, make it blossom. Those are his words. And that was in 2015. And we're in the middle of our 7th year and on the cusp of becoming the Global Tea Institute at UC Davis.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you have public programs? You know, can anyone participate? I mean, how can people get involved if they're interested?
Sure. So there are a couple. One is that for outreach, we have an annual event, and what we call an annual colloquium. Our 7th annual colloquium on tea and wellness teas is coming up for January 13th. And if you just go to our website, globaltea.ucdavis.edu, you can register for the event. It's a Zoom event, free and open to the public. It's all day, some phenomenal papers on teas by experts from around the world, health benefits, meditation aspects, the indigenous people's use of tea, a wellness tea for establishing an identity, and more. It's going to be a really fascinating day. So that's January 13th. Beyond that, because interest in tea and UC Davis has been so strong, people write me all the time asking to be involved and participate in GTI. We decided that what we could do is establish the International Society for Global Tea Scholars, which we have done. And
excellent.
yeah, and I think there are, a healthy enrollment in that. We were hit by COVID efforts, so that we sort of went a little fallow there, but we aimed to start back up and get people involved and figure out ways to engage the international community for people who are interested in tea research and teaching, and whatever, if they're in academia or industry or other. So there's that for external, for the outreach and engagement. For our students, when the students heard that we had established the Global Tea Initiative, they zipped over to my office and said, Professor Burnett, can we have a club? It's like, well, sure, fine with me. And so they did all the necessary paperwork to establish the Global Tea Club on campus. Their first event in 2016 had 90 people show up, sipping tea and sharing teas for 3 hours. I mean, wow, the interest in the students was phenomenal. And so they also have been extraordinarily active, bringing in people from the industry to give talks to them, and thinking about ways tea is used, say, as a dye for fabrics or art, and of course, tastings, and the health and nutrition aspects. So students can join that. Oh yeah, one other thing, people in the industry would be interested to know that we are about to launch our UC Davis GTI professional tea program, especially targeted at the industry. And again, this is at industry request, sort of something similar to your Master Brewers program, to train people at a very high level. It's 10 intensive weeks, but with academic credit. So we're doing all sorts of things to help the community the way UC Davis does, to help people in various with crop studies and wine and other things.
We do have a question, which I wasn't going to start the questions yet, but this seems like the right time to ask it.
Okay.
Someone is asking, can faculty or staff join the club? I think it's a student club, so I'm not sure about that.
Right. It's a student club. It's an ASUCD club, so that's
Right.
targeted for students. But if there are others, faculty and staff and students at UC Davis who are interested in working on tea in any kind of way, I'll make you a member of GTI. It's as simple as send me an email and I will ask you for things like your photograph and a description of your interests for tea research, and we'll get you on our website.
All right, that sounds good. Let's see. I think we're going to have to move on now.
All right.
But don't go away. We're going to bring you back once we get to the tastings, okay?
Sure. Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks for the chat. I'll see you in a bit.
Okay, all right. So our next guest is Manik Jayakumar. Manik is the founder of Q-Trade Teas and Herbs, and he's on the advisory board of the UC Davis Global Tea Initiative. He's been working in tea for 57 years. Manik, you've got me beat. I've been at Davis for only 30. Now, for 25 of those years, he grew tea in Sri Lanka, where he was the consultant for the very first organic tea garden. Manik was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award for tea in 1989. And a few years later, founded Q-Trade and Teas and Herbs in 1994. That company has won over 100 awards in the World Tea Expo in all categories. So Manik, welcome.
Thank you, Andy. It's a great pleasure to speak to you and your team of our guests. I thank all of you for this opportunity. And
you're welcome. Well, let me get started by asking you, what do you find so fascinating about tea? Obviously, you've been very involved for a very long time, so there must be something you find very interesting about tea.
I want to particularly talk about organic teas, which I happened to be the consultant 35 years ago. And there are several aspects that many people do not even know. So together with a German company, we put together a project to grow organic tea in Sri Lanka. The garden we selected was called Needwood. Now it's called Hidalgasena. We still buy teas from that garden. So when we started it, the tea has already been grown in that garden for about 70 years. So it was somewhat, it's a high elevation garden, somewhat eroded soils. So the first thing we had to do was to build back soil, build back the topsoil, as we would call it. So we launched a very large dairy program. Then we also, tea can grow quite well under shade. So we had a shade tree program, low shade to lop and give the mulch, and a very aggressive composting program with vermiculture and so on. So very fast agriculture. So when we started that program, there were no birds to be seen. The springs had dried up because of use of chemical fertilizer and weedicides and so on. And there was no bird life to be seen. 5 years later, it was amazing change of scenery. The springs got back. Animals and birds have a way of rushing out of the place if you start doing chemicals, any kind of chemical agriculture, So they all started coming back. The birds came back, and the most amazing thing which I want to particularly tell about is the benefit the community got out of this exercise. We think organic drinking or taking organic food is only helping us. But I want to tell you now the benefits we saw in the community. They were very anemic when we started the project. The blood levels went good. There was infant mortality very high. It reduced. The life expectancy also was high. So the entire community benefited by the use of organic agriculture in a tea garden. So that is the point I just want to make, and we are quite thrilled about it. I would stop at that because I have 57 years to talk about various other things, but let me stop at that for the moment.
Oh, okay. Well, the other thing I wanted to ask you about was, Q-Trade. What are the products that you're selling?
Thank you. It's like a marketing thing for me now that you asked that question. We import teas from all over the world. We are the largest importers of organic tea in North America. So we have, we ourselves and our teams have gone to different countries. Pretty much, the last country I visited was Mozambique. It's just at the end of '89. It's going to have the largest organic tea garden in the world. They are making excellent teas. It was abandoned because of warfare and things like that. It was long years ago. Belgians had grown some good tea. So we import teas from different parts of the world and make it available in North America. So we are, besides selling specialty teas, we are also manufacturers of teas. We sell a lot of different kinds of teas, including iced tea. So we are we are not only specialists in one kind of tea. We have awards from all manner of teas, whether it's a white tea or a Japanese tea or a oolong tea. We have a team. We have 2 food scientists, including Matt, who is working here, who is going to make the presentation from alumni of UC Davis. So we have 2 food scientists working for us. So we have a very advanced product development department. So I think we are doing okay, but COVID naturally brought something down, but we are back up again.
So where do you see the market going in tea?
So market is trend. Tea was already a wellness tea. When people drank tea, it was considered a wellness. In fact, after the boost, they had that following a conference promoted by the Tea Association in Washington so the tea in general got a big boost. The tea sales began to grow up. But now what is happening is, even before COVID, there are other herbals that are coming into play. So it's not only tea. The tea, the Camellia sinensis is now topped up by different kinds of herbs that make specific more important wellness angle. So wellness is a big showing. Wellness teas are showing tremendous growth now. So these are additions. So even Q-Trade has changed the name many years ago from Q-Trade teas to Q-Trade teas and herbs. Even Canadian Tea Association has changed the name from Canadian Tea Association, including herbals. Even GTI, we have now decided to accommodate the herbals as well, so that they are also, because they are called, in US, everything is called tea, though when we refer to tea, we primarily refer to the tea from Camellia sinensis plant. In fact, all the 4 teas that are being presented today are from Camellia sinensis. So whether it's a green tea or a oolong tea or black tea, all can be made out of this wonderful plant.
All right. Well, we're going to move on and talk to Rona next, but please don't go away. We're going to get back to you for a tasting in a few minutes. So hang in there, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, our next guest is Rona Tyson. Rona is a tea industry connoisseur with a refined approach to the US and Japanese culture, as well as innovative marketing. She's the Executive Vice President of Corporate Relations at Ito En, Japan's #1 green tea brand and world's leading purveyor of premium and sustainably grown green tea and other healthy beverages. In addition to her role at Ito En, Tyson serves on the board of the Tea Association of the USA and the Tea and Health Committee, the US Japan Council and Advisory Board of the US UC Davis Global Tea Initiative. She's also a member of the Tea and Herbal Association of Canada. Welcome, Rona.
Hello, Andrew. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here with my comrades, Manik, and of course, Catherine, and the guests that we have this evening.
Yeah. When we were chatting earlier, it seems that your view of tea is based on its cultural significance. How did that get you interested in tea?
Well, I think, you know, my heritage, I'm half Japanese. I grew up in Japan, and, you know, early on, I think the introduction, I remember my grandmother, nothing started without tea. So de mama ocha o dozo. So we would sit down and she would brew pot of tea, and that was our moment of pause, time to converse. It was our way, and of course, when you go to Japan, you know, that is very much a part of the hospitality. But also there's the traditional Japanese tea ceremony, which is, you know, with the ceremonial matcha, and that's a whole tea ritual and something that is done, you know, with the Buddhism meditation and can be enjoyed in solitude, but also represents, you know, hospitality and a lot of the aesthetic beauties associated with the tea ceremony. So I think early on, I was very, you know, enamored with that. I did at age 17 learn the tea ceremony. And was just taken with the aesthetics, the beauty, and just that appreciation and that beautiful cup of tea, which I would say it's like it's the first plant-based beverage when you really think about it. But you know, all the goodness of the tea leaf. So I was quite delighted when Ito En, which is a company that was established in 1966, decided to come to United States, North America, and kind of cultivate a authentic green tea culture. And of course, we were the first pioneers to develop the first ready-to-drink unsweetened green tea. That really revolutionized tea drinking in Japan. And I myself have always been somebody who didn't like, you know, sweetened sodas or beverages. So it's been really quite a passion for me.
Before we move on, I just realized I'm supposed to remind everyone that they should get their water warm and get ready to make the first tea, which is, we'll be moving on to the green teas shortly. So you want to have your tea making equipment handy.
Yes.
But
and a reminder, not boiling for green tea.
Yes.
Temperature is critical for Japanese green tea.
And the brewing time is really short.
Yes. Convenient.
You don't have to get it. You don't have to start steeping yet. Okay, but start getting ready. Okay.
Yes. Well, thank you. But so to give you a little bit of background in terms of Ito En, which, you know, I'm very proud to be part of a company that really is committed to the sustainability of tea. And of course, you know, we're part of GTI very much because of that as well. But Ito En works very closely with the tea farmers. So we're a vertically integrated company. We work very closely with tea farmers, and we have a redevelopment tea farming program. So on the right, you can see that, you know, we nurture young tea farmers and really ensure that from the cultivation, the tea leaf and the harvesting. And, you know, I'm proud to see that Fortune had recognized us as one of 50 companies changing the world for that initiative that we have, working with the community and the kind of the social impact in terms of sustainability of tea and tea farming. So, I have to say that all our teas are of high quality, a lot of meticulous attention to it. And of course, the longevity and the sustainability is so important for us. And one of the other initiatives that we have is we recycle a lot of our tea leaves. So we do the ready to drinks. So we have developed this kind of eco product that is made into pellets. And from that, we make different various products. For example, you'll see a photograph of the tea bench, tatami mats, household goods. So from the tea leaf, we recycle that and make these eco byproducts. And even vending machines, many of you have visited Japan, there's lots of vending machines, Ito and vending machines selling our products, and many of them are made of this recycled material. So that's one of the initiatives that we actually were recognized by the Ministry of Agriculture in Japan. So, it's been exciting that, we of course produce great beverages, but we also are thinking environmentally and in terms of longevity and sustainability in communities and products.
And in the future, are you, like Manik mentioned, are you planning to go beyond Camellia sinensis, or are you, what's your product mix looking like down the road?
Well, right now, it's interesting because we do actually have beverages even beyond, the tea leaf, but like mugicha, which is a very popular beverage for us in Japan. They drink, it's a barley tea. So that's kind of a caffeine free that it's been one of the top sellers in Japan. That is the go-to beverage. And, we're kind of expanding and introducing that here in this country. But, we do have herbal blends. We have a line, but I'd have to say our expertise is definitely in the Camellia sinensis, and that is, with green tea. And for those of you who may not be aware, but all tea is made from the Camellia sinensis plant. It's just green tea is, particularly Japanese green tea, is steamed, and that's very unique to Japanese green tea, is that it's steamed versus a pan fried, which is a little bit more, in Chinese tea. And of course, I know Manik's going to be talking about the oolongs and the black tea, which are more fully oxidized versus the green teas that are unoxidized. Which is why for green tea, temperature is critical. It usually is a lower temperature than the oolongs or the black teas.
Right. So in terms of brewing, maybe we should talk a little bit about, before we move on to our first tea here, maybe you could talk a little bit about the details of brewing a green tea versus, I think most of our viewers are probably more familiar with making black tea blends.
Well, it's interesting because I used to, early on, I would hear that, well, I hear green tea is good for you, which it is. It's full of, health benefits, the catechins, the EGCG, vitamin C, vitamin A. It's just a great minerals and so forth. But I would always hear that they'd say it was bitter. Oh goodness, it's so bitter and astringent. Well, it was because they were using the wrong temperature. And again, because it's steamed, it's a much more fragile tea leaf. So temperature really needs to be about, say, 175 degrees. So below brewing point. And it's interesting because even in Japan, they have a vessel, actually it's called a yuzamashi, which means cooling vessel. So, they have a yuzamashi, a cooling vessel, to ensure that you bring the temperature down, and then you can steep your tea leaf. So that is something that, was kind of first of the education in terms of enjoying green tea, because traditionally, again, with black teas, you pour, a higher temperature because it would withstand it. So.
Right. Just a quick question. Your comment about the barley tea. So this is made without Camellia sinensis?
Yeah, that's not with that is not a Camellia sinensis. It's a barley tea, but that is sort of a summer beverage, and that's one of our most popular. We have our Oyocha, which I think many of you may have seen on the markets. That's our #1 selling green tea, that unsweetened green tea, no additives. But we also have a popular beverage in Japan, which is the Mugicha, and that's a decaf. It's a barley beverage,
So
but it's not the Camellia sinensis.
So that's made just with barley, like you take barley and
Yes.
roast it or something, and
Yes,
then
it's a roasted barley, and I have to tell you, it's my go-to as well in the summer. It's very refreshing. When you travel through Japan, wherever you go, they'll serve you, particularly in the summertime. It's just a very refreshing, thirst quenching. And I think a lot of times, people, the fact that it's decaf, they appreciate that. Although I always stress that with green tea, there is caffeine, but because it has the L-theanine, the amino acid, which gives you that sort of calm, alertness, it balances. It doesn't give you the jitters, let's say, that a coffee would give you. So it gives you kind of that calm, that focus, but a little bit of that sustained energy.
All right. So we're gonna move on to the tasting, and I think Catherine's gonna rejoin us here in a second or two.
Great.
Why don't you start describing this first tea then?
Okay, so I'm introducing 2 green teas, and I thought it was interesting that both of the teas that I presented, and mind you, we do have leaf teas, but given the nature of the tea tasting, and we do have a full portfolio of tea bags, I wanted to introduce, we have 2 brands today. One is the Matcha Love, which is a little bit more premium, and it's the Sencha, which is green tea, and matcha. So Sencha is just green tea leaves, okay? And then matcha, which is huge today, enjoyed in many ways, is a finely milled green tea powder. And that is shade grown. It's made into a fine powder. And the beauty about matcha is you ingest the entire vitality of that tea leaf, because it's the tencha, which is the leaf that's dried, and the veins and the stems are removed. So you get the meaty portion of that tea leaf, and that's ground into powder. So you ingest that entire tea leaf. And that's why I think so many people are really enjoying and appreciating matcha, because it's just full of great health benefits to it, as well. It has a wonderful bold taste to it. So that is the Matcha Love, which we'll have, and we'll have that first. And then we're going to try the Itoen, the Oyocha, which is our oldest brand, 32 years. And this is actually a blend also of the Sencha and the matcha, but it has the roasted rice, which is a Genmaicha. And so you'll see the difference in terms of the taste profile. It has much more of a nutty flavor. And Genmaicha, they often say, is a people's tea, because they would, in the old days, they wanted to stretch out their tea leaves. So they would add kind of the leftover rice that they had and realize it was quite delicious. So it's really one of the popular teas today. So what I recommend, and the beauty about these 2 tea bags, this really is 30 seconds, and you can enjoy, the steeping in 30 seconds. So I would recommend, and I have kind of the double edge of the teacup.
Right.
I'm going to put the tea bag in there. And I must say, today they have so many great vessels and appliances that have temperatures already set for different teas. So for example, I know this one right here is a Cuisinart, but it has different temperature settings. So if you want, hot tea, you've got the 175 for green, 190 for oolong, 200 for the black. So this might be a good investment for those of you who are going to be enjoying tea and wanted to try the different teas. So I have, for the green teas, I'm pouring into our teacup with our tea bag, 175.
All right.
And I'm going to do this simultaneous, actually, because we got 30 seconds, and I know Manik's probably have a lot of teas that he wants to talk about. So I'm going to pour into my other glass the Matcha Love, which is the Sencha and matcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 30 seconds. And so, I have the tea bag in here, and, we recommend sort of a little bit, giving a little movement to it. So let it steep and kind of infuse and enjoy, but 30 seconds. And what I think is really quite, a lot of people don't know that you can actually, with our Matcha Love, for example, do a cold brew tea as well. So you can do hot at 175, 30 seconds, but you can also use the tea bag in cold water and steep it for about 3 minutes. And I actually already pre-steep this in cold water. And this is a cold brew bottle. And they actually designed, I like this because it's actually in a wine design. And you could put this in your refrigerator. And Andrew, you're in wine, so you could probably appreciate this. But I just did a cold brew. I put our Matcha Love tea bag in there. You can put it, let it sit in the refrigerator and enjoy it in a nice wine glass. And so you're going to enjoy it. And interesting enough, when you do cold brew, it really brings a lot more of the kind of umami sweetness out of it. It kind of suppresses the astringency. So cold brew is really quite wonderful to enjoy too. But so I don't know if you both have your tea, because I've got them side by side here. And I think probably 30 seconds. But one of the differences you'll see, and this is one of the beauty that I think Ito and really our expertise is being able to bring out, the aroma and the flavor with the tea leaves, and having a balance, particularly with the matcha and the genmai. And you'll see that with the Matcha Love, which is the sencha and matcha, there's a real smooth finish to it. And it's herbaceous. It's a very sort of a lively taste to it. And because green tea has umami, and that's sort of the fifth taste sense, there's a sweetness because of the L-theanine. And there's more L-theanine in green tea than there is, let's say, in a black tea. But I think it's probably been 30 seconds. So I'm going to, and the best thing is to do sort of a little bit dancing of your tea bag.
So I'm going to ask Catherine here about the brewing temperature.
Yeah.
It sounds like maybe one of the reasons a lot of people don't like green tea is they're brewing at too high of a temperature. Is that your experience?
Absolutely. People are scalding their little leaves. And so the little leaf doesn't have a chance. And so if you, lower the temperature, then you will have a successful cup of tea. And it really is delicious. I mean, I love Japanese, there's great teas from around the world, but Japanese green teas are really special. They are so umami rich. It's just extraordinary, really distinct flavor.
Yes, and there's a real freshness that, you really do have sort of a taste of nature in a sense. There's a little grassiness to it. A lot of times, it's interesting because a lot of people say it's very vegetal. And ironically, for the Japanese, they really do like a lot more of the umami taste, sort of, they almost like this, there's a seaweed taste to some of the green teas. Interesting. So, I really think there's so many different varieties of green tea from different regions of Japan. There's the Gyokuro, which is considered one of the finest high quality green teas. And that is, shade grown, but it has a very, very sort of a umami sweetness to it, but can be a little bit vegetal for some, Western palates.
Right.
But
so we have a question here.
yes.
So it says, given that it's almost 7 p.m., will the green teas we're tasting keep us awake?
Well, the Japanese have been drinking green tea. That was, I must tell you, that was something growing up in Japan. Nobody ever really talked about caffeine. We drank tea and that was it. And it really wasn't until even coming here that there seemed to be a little bit more questions in terms of caffeine. But I do realize some people are caffeine sensitive.
Mhm,
But again, because of the L-theanine, I
mhm.
think it really gives a little bit more of a calming effect than, let's say, the caffeine you may find in a coffee.
Right,
And you can have a lighter cup of tea if you like. And
right.
we really do suggest that people have different palates and different times of the day. So if you want a little bit more of an intense, bolder, stronger cup of tea, but later in the evening you may want something a little bit lighter and less steeping, so to speak.
Okay, and we're going to have to wrap up here, but we do have one more. It's more of a comment. I don't know what to make of this. It says matcha and lime cookies are a great combination.
Oh. Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting. This matcha has taken off
Yeah.
a world of its own. And, we have it obviously in our ocha here, but matcha has been enjoyed now on its own. It's been incorporated into smoothies, into cooking, whether savory or baking. And, it really has a wonderful, vivacious, kind of a bold intensity to it. But I'm sure with lime, it probably is delicious. So,
And I'm going to do a plug for matcha with chocolate. So,
oh, that's
Yeah.
a good one. Yes,
Yeah, classic.
absolutely.
yeah.
So, ocha minasan tanoshinde kudasai. So I'm going to taste my little tea here.
All right.
Mm.
Okay, well, I've got to squeeze in this one last question before we move on to Manik's tasting. It says they love Japanese teas, but they're concerned about Japanese teas since the Fukushima accident. Can you say anything to ease their fears?
Well, I can ease their fears because, there's intense testing today, and
Mhm.
particularly even in Japan.
Right.
And they actually have even more stringent guidelines and testing in Japan than
Right.
even here in North America. So all our tests are, we do all testing on that. And quite frankly, I know initially it was a concern, and we did, we as well, because we import here into the United States as
Right.
well. But I can assure you that there's nothing to be concerned about.
All right. Okay, we'll have to thank you then for guiding us through this green tea tasting.
Well, thank you. We hope you'll enjoy our Ito and Ocha.
All right. Well, let's move on then. We'll bring Manik in. Hi, Manik. You're back with
Hi.
us.
Hi.
So,
So
which tea do you want people to?
we are going to present the black tea, the first. It's an award-winning tea. It has won awards all over the world. Actually,
So
it's a very very bold tea.
Okay, so
very
that's
bold,
just a second. That's the one that's labeled Ceylon extra special.
extra
right?
special.
Okay.
Though it comes from Sri Lanka, but the brand name is Ceylon for tea, because Ceylon teas became so popular really because of Lipton's. They made it very popular. So when the country changed the name, the tea industry decided to sell all their teas as a Ceylon tea instead of calling it a Sri Lanka tea. So it comes from the country of Sri Lanka, but it is a Ceylon tea. This particular tea is a very, very special tea. Matt here will show you what is special about it. So he will take this. So first we are going to look at the appearance of the tea. He's beginning to brew the tea. I will talk about brewing later on. So you see some white specks there. So no other tea in the world has these white specks. There are teas that have gold specks, yellow specks from Assam and China, but no other tea. These teas are sold at the highest prices at Ceylon, at the Sri Lankan auctions. As you know, tea is sold at auctions, so they have a extra name, extra special, BOPFs, extra special, like, and so on, BOP1 extra special, and so on. Those are, but extra special means it has tip content. So that means it is the higher the tip content, the more expensive is the price. So this particular tea has been sold, taking part in many competitions and won awards all over the world. So it's a really amazing tea that you are going to drink. So we are going to taste this tea in a traditional tea tasting set. So Matt will say a few words about it, and I will follow thereafter as well.
Okay, thank you, Manik. So in typical tea industry, we use 3 pieces of a set: the cup, the lid, and the bowl. And then typically we use a loose leaf like this. We put in maybe 2 grams for black tea and maybe 1.5 grams for green tea. And we'll steep it for about 5 minutes, hot, between 208 to 212 Fahrenheit hot water for 5 minutes. And then for green tea or oolong tea, we usually typically use a low temperature, which is around 281 or 181, sorry, 181 to 190 for about 3 minutes. So because like Rana was mentioning how green teas are very delicate, same with the oolong teas, they're very delicate too. So low temperature is necessary.
We are covering both on this. So one of the things I want to show this perforation. Take it closer. There's a little perforation in this tea that allows the tea to breathe, breathing. So some of the inferior cups don't have it. These teas are sold at auctions in many countries. It started off in England, but it's now sold in Kenya. India has 3 or 4 auction centers, Indonesia, and so on and so forth. So Kenya, Mozambique, and
okay. So Manik, so if you go to one of these auctions, then this is how the tea is tasted.
Yes. So there are these group of people called tea brokers. They taste these teas and evaluate and send a report saying that bold and so on and so forth. So at the auctions, people bid for these teas. So that is even this extra special tea you have to go and bid and buy this tea because some countries have rigid rules that you cannot sell this separately. So we brew this and for 5 minutes, because we were originally going to give you the 5 minutes and taste it together, but in the interest of time, we are going to do something else, and we are going to show you the liquor in a glass cup, not in this bowl, but in a glass cup. This is the oolong tea has already brewed with a 3-minute period. It has a golden, rich golden color. I will talk about that in a minute after talking a little more about the black tea. This black tea has a malty character. So I want to tell you a few things how I drink this tea at home, for example, to make it easy. So I have a mug, I have a teaspoon. I put the teaspoon of tea into this and put the hot water, and this is good enough. I don't measure 2 grams and all that. This teaspoon is good enough. If it is a little too much, next time I reduce it a little so that I get it to my taste. So people sometimes find it very inconvenient to brew teas and measure the grammage and so on and so forth. So in a regular mug, we put it, and we can use the regular teaspoon. 1 teaspoon is good enough for this regular mug, 6 to 8 ounces of tea. So that's convenient. Now this has been brewed. It has a nice rich color. So it has the taste. If you find it a little too strong for some people, you can increase the water level a little bit, or reduce the grammage a little bit if you want to. But this is pretty much the standard grammage. Many people drink black teas from Sri Lanka along with milk sometimes, or lemon these are what we call self-drinking teas. You can drink it straight. They are ready to drink teas, ready to drink in that sense. They are so flavorful. This is in fact an amazing tea, which has
You don't-
won lots of
yeah.
awards.
You don't need milk or sugar or lemon or
No,
anything. in
you
it.
don't.
Just
You
plain-
don't need that. In fact, if somebody asks for that, I get angry with them. So it's a way of spoiling this tea. So it's a really a good tea that you love to be enjoyed. It has to have a full boil to get the best extraction of 200 and this thing 210 202 or 200 plus anyway, and brewed for 5 minutes. That's a secret.
Okay. So Catherine, do you have any comments about drinking these kinds of teas compared to the green teas?
It's like red wine and white wine. It's a matter of what you feel like, what you're eating, what time of day it is. Sometimes I find one tea, I want something a little comforting, and so I go for the black tea or the green tea or what have you. I mean, or there are days that you just go, like I want a really good Cabernet. I'm going for this one. It's just a personal response. And I think that's one of the fun things about it. I would point out that, as I think Manik already said earlier, that all of these different colors of tea, that Rona's 2 different colors of light green tea and this lovely golden tea of the oolong, and then on the left, the rich red color of the Tiaguanin black tea, they're all from the same plant, Camellia sinensis, but it's the artistry of the plucking, of the processing, of the rolling, of the heating to different levels that make the tea taste different. And the site, just like the terroir or siting for wine grapes, is important and has an effect on ultimately what's in your cup. Same thing for tea. It's very sensitive to its environment. Some teas are plucked in the moonlight, for example. I mean, it's so particular to time and space that a great tea will reflect that in the cup. It's really remarkable and makes it a lot of fun. And like wine, a lot of fun to share.
Right, right. So Manik, you got some last few comments there about what we should be tasting in your teas?
Now I want to move to the Tiaguanin, which is one of the most famous Chinese teas. First, like we did in the black tea, we are going to show you the rolled and rolled version of this tea. It's very aromatic as well. Tiaguanin is the most famous oolong tea. Chinese oolongs have taken on, Taiwan oolongs rather, sorry. This was originally all from China, from Fujian province. So they also have different versions of it. This oolong, I would say, is a lightly oxidized oolong. That means it is allowed to be rolled, crushed a little, and they control the timing with aroma. It's actually in Taiwan they used to put it in a bowl, cloth bowl, and they used to smash it and more or less do the same thing to get an aroma. When the aroma is right, then they would do what they call the firing. So they control the aroma to an extent. But oolongs in China, they go on depending on the oxidation, even very dark oolong. In fact, one of the most expensive oolongs in China, Daohan Pao, is almost like a black tea. So but all the same, it is an oolong tea. That means it's allowed to ferment a little more than the Tiaguanin oolong tea. Tiaguanin oolong tea is very, very popular. In fact, the most popular tea out of out of Chinese oolongs. So it's so you do not brew it for a long time like the black tea. You brew it in between 3 minutes for about 3 minutes, and in the grammage also, if you want a more robust oolong, you can put in a little extra grams onto it and drink it. And the beauty of both these teas is you can have a second brew and a third brew also if necessary. So only thing, you have to reduce the water a little, and because you pay good money for this kind of teas, so you might as well get the best of it. Of course, if you use those Chinese brewing system, they brew it multiple times. One of the things they do, if you know how the Chinese teas are brewed, is they do a thing called washing. We are only doing the westernized way, or we are showing you westernized what we are doing in the auction system, or what most other countries are doing. But if you were to drink in a Chinese brewed background, they quickly wash the tea and give it throw it out, and then the second brew and the third brew. In fact, the third brew is can be quite delicious. They control the weight and put the hot water and things like that. It is also a special art how they brew it and serve it around. One of the things that I want to talk about, the caffeine component. Caffeine evaporates very quickly. So what happens in the case of this washing business, a good portion of the caffeine also is got rid of. So which is a good thing. If you want a slightly less caffeinated teas, you don't have to look for decaffeinated teas. You can do a quick hot water and just wash it out, and then do that. Some people used to try it as a water decaffeination process in case you have, but you don't get the best of the tea flavor and aroma when you do that. But anyway, this is in passing. I just want to tell you that. So this is the color.
Manik, we're going to have to get going. We're a little bit over time.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to?
So I want to thank you for showing us these two wonderful teas, the really special ones. And I do want to let the audience know that in the follow-up email, we'll be giving you some direction on how to purchase these teas, because Q-Trade right now does not sell retail. So if you want to get these teas, you're going to have to ask. I think it's going to go to Matt there on the left. Matt's going to be giving you some guidance on how to get your hands on some of these fabulous teas. But thank you very much, Manik. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for this opportunity of presenting both these teas to you guys. Thank you.
We'll be moving on now. So Catherine, in terms of wrapping up, I just wanted to ask you one other thing. One of the things I noticed here, and one of the things Rona mentioned as well, is sort of the tea ceremony. I don't know if this is ever going to catch on in the US, but it's to me, it raises the significance of the beverage quite a bit when you actually start talking about a tea ceremony. And I know you've studied this. So I just wondered if you could comment a little bit about what this means to the people who practice these tea ceremonies.
Yeah, so there are, of course, different kinds of by ceremony, ritual, or ways of practice around the world. Everybody has one, and often people are surprised to discover that there are other ways of doing things. But it's fun to learn about them and share them. And the people may be more aware of the Japanese tea ceremony, which can be quite formal. In contrast, what in China is considered the tea ceremony is quite informal. And one of the things I like about it is you can be a little messy, and you spill a lot of water all over the place, but ultimately it ends up between the pot and your cup in your mouth, and so it's just fine. But it's the recognition that the vessel is perfectly shaped, to really make the tea as good quality as possible. And you pour it into in a way that is quite, people who know how to do it are very good at it. I'm not so practiced, but it works well enough for my purposes. But it can be quite lovely. And the table can be set with a theme, like a seasonal theme or a holiday theme that is meant to inspire conversation and sharing. And one of the things I like about the material culture of it is not only is a pot really beautiful or the cup really beautiful, but the tongs can be carved with a landscape scene, or the sieve can be in the shape of a cheerful little gourd and made with exquisite materials. And each one of these things tells a story that the host can share with the guest can share, and so it's a launching point for sharing stories, sharing experiences that can bring people together in these lovely, lovely ways that seem quite innocent and coincidental, chancy, just by chance, but such lovely opportunities to share, exhale, enjoy being with people, and in a way that is quite special. I took a couple student trips with study abroad trips with UC Davis students, and of course I've been in China many times for research, and the tea culture there I'm most familiar with, and I would go to a tea house and go, wow, this is what's missing from US society. We really need this kind of environment because, we love coffee. I love coffee, I'm happy with it, but it's a different experience to slow down and exhale and drink a cup of tea and pause and allow yourself to pause. And I think that's one of the things that we hope to do with GTI when we have our own building, to have our own tea rooms that will encourage people to come, whether on campus or from off campus, and just slow down, pause to have that cup of tea, give yourself a break before you go back to the onslaught of your day, because people are busy.
Okay, well, that's a wonderful conclusion to our program here. Thank you so much. And I want to thank our other guests, Manik, Matt, and Rona, for giving us a really nice insight into tasting tea, learning how it's made, where is it grown, and what makes it so special. I mean, I have to say, I didn't really think there were teas that were that different, but these were really exceptional teas. So thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks so much.
So in closing then, I'd like to let everyone know that we'll be having some new events, obviously next year, and we'll be announcing those in January, so please stay tuned. If you want to stay in touch, you can also follow us with social media on Instagram and Facebook. We'll be getting those announcements out as they come along. And I'd like to thank the folks in our Friends program who are instrumental in supporting the programs like this and the others that we put on. And on your way out, please remember to fill out the survey. Give us feedback on how if you enjoyed this program or if you have suggestions for the future. And finally, good night. And I hope you enjoyed your tea. Thank you. Bye-bye.